Hi, this is Marty Vint. I'm here to talk to you today about a new feature available in Creative Studio 6 called Nodes. It basically replaces a previous feature in Creative Studio that we use to divide patterns, but it provides us with a great deal more flexibility. Let me do a brief demonstration of how nodes work, and then I'm going to show you how to apply the divide function of nodes to a simple pillow project. I'm working in standalone mode here, and I'm going to start by basically drawing a simple line shape just to give you some ideas. So I'm going to go to draw sewable P2P line, or I could have selected the P2P line icon up in the top toolbar. I'm just going to very basically draw a simple, linear, irregular shape. And I'm going to escape that function. And notice that when you draw with a P2P line, I have made only my start click and 1, 2, 3 clicks at the corners. When I enter the nodes mode, which can be found in several ways, by clicking F7 on your keyboard, by right-clicking the design and dropping down to nodes, or by looking for the nodes icon in the far right side of your screen that has a pink and a blue square on it. When you click on this, you notice that little pink boxes, and I call these the pink end node boxes, appear wherever you clicked. If you hover over one of the boxes, you see as your cursor gets close and right on top it turns into a plus sign, which means you're right there, you're on top of that node. Then I can simply click D on my keyboard and notice how I have divided or separated that first line, that starting line, from the remainder of my pattern. Another way to use the pink divide or pink end nodes is to hover over it and right click, and that brings up a designer node box with the word divide at the top of it. If I simply move my cursor over to the word divide, you see how it turns blue, and click on that, again, that will also divide my pattern. So those are two methods of using nodes to divide your pattern. And I'm going to select all of these patterns and simply click delete on my keyboard to get rid of them. Now I'm going to draw a simple arc. This time I will select the arc tool at the top of my CAD screen. And I'm just going to make it as simple as possible. This time I am going to engage my endpoint snap by clicking E on my keyboard, or I could have clicked E down here. And I'm just going to draw basically a simple shape. I don't want it to be a circle. There. Now that is not a very great shape, but it is a simple shape. When I select this particular design, notice that when you draw a curve or an arc, these come in as separate elements, and that's why you have to click the first point again. So notice again, I'm going to do that a little slower. I'll draw another one. When I click a second curve, I have to click again at the start point. If I want to click on nodes now, I'm only going to get one of those shapes at this current time. What I may prefer to do, and often would prefer to do, would be to select the entire shape and combine it by clicking on the Combine Patterns icon, or by right-clicking and going down and finding the word Combine Patterns and selecting that. Now this is one pattern, and when we select our nodes icon, we can see that it gives us nodes throughout the pattern. And it gives us two different color boxes. It gives us nodes where we made our clicks, and it also gives us blue arc adjustment nodes. These have little lines that show the connection that they have to their stationary node. When you move them, you simply click on a node and keep your button pressed down on your mouse and simply move. You can move it any way you want, and you can adjust your curves. So here I noticed that there was sort of a point, and I want to change that. I can move my pink node, or I can also adjust that by moving my blue nodes to make my curve smoother. And maybe here I want to make my curve a little bit smaller. So you notice how I'm just adjusting these different handles to create a different appearance for my design. I would like to escape nodes, and the easiest way to do that is simply to hit escape on your keyboard, and you notice how that gets us out of the nodes feature. There's one other completely new function of nodes, and I just would like to review that with you quickly. I'm going to select my pattern, click on nodes. When you hover over a pink node and you right click, remember how I said it would bring up the designer node box, and we could use that to divide by hovering over the D or divide. There's also a box underneath that allows us to write in. We could make notes. We could type really anything we wanted, but to have it affect the stitcher itself or the way the pattern is stitched out, there are three primary functions. You could type in here pause, all in capital letters, and that would create a stop. Your sewing head would stop when it got to that node. And you see how when I click off of that to engage it, there's a red dot over the node. And if I right click it again, you can see where it is on my screen. I might want to create a message to increase the speed because I have a long area that has very few curves and I could sew it faster. I would type SPEED for speed, and then I would type the percentage that I wanted the speed to increase. So if I were sewing at 50 and I wanted to increase it to 65, I think I would type in 125. And that means it's going to, the actual speed is going to increase by 25%. And again, you can click enter on your keyboard and that will put your node onto your design. Then you might want to change your stitches per inch is another thing you can use your nodes for. So you would right click and you would type in all in caps SPI. And again, this is a percentage function. So if you wanted to make your stitches just a little bit tighter, you might want to put 110 in there, and that's just going to give you a slightly shorter stitch length. Enter, and there's our node. Okay, so those are the basic principles I wanted to talk about, and these will apply to the simple project that we are now going to design. I'm going to make roughly a 10 by 10 pillow, so that would be 2 squares by 2 squares. But I, being basically lazy, am only going to design the left half of my pillow first, and then to make it symmetrical, I'll just mirror image it, and that'll give me the right half. So I'm only going to be working on 1 square across, basically, and 2 up. You know, it's not important that it be precise here, and we can adjust the size of our pillow to anything we want when we're finished. So I'm going to start here and just draw a simple curve. And then I have my endpoint snap on, so that's snapped. And I'm going to draw a simple curve here. I wanted to have a curved corner here. It's a little bit easier to turn, I know that, so I'm going to keep moving up here to this second top of the second grid. Give him just a very slight curve here. And I'm going to work right down into his nose. And actually, I think I'm going to adjust this a little, so I'm going to turn on my F7. And notice when I do that, the endpoint snap automatically shuts off. And there's a reason for that. You can indeed work with endpoint snap in nodes, but be a little bit careful, because once you engage endpoint snap, it's really easy for your nodes to snap together. So you have to be a little controlled, and it takes just a bit of practice to work with that. So I wanted to adjust my shape, and here is an example. I'm going to click on E to let those two entities snap together. Now I'm going to disengage E by clicking E so that it prevents anything else from snapping. And as I want to snap, I simply press E on my keyboard, then I turn it off to prevent anything else from snapping. So I think, we're just going to go like that, and then we can play with this some more as we go along. I know that doesn't look much like an owl yet. First of all, I think he's going to need some kind of a wing. So let me draw a very simple wing. The purpose of this project is not to show you great quilting, but more or less to teach you the use of these tools. So I'm turning off endpoint, and I'm going to just draw a wing here. And I think that might have been a little bit big. I can still use my other tools, my other endpoint handles to make my adjustments. And now I'm going to again draw. I'm going to select E so I can snap here. And maybe I'll give him a second wing right about there. And believe me, there's a lot of things you could do. But I figured you didn't want to watch this video for 2 hours, so we're going to try to make this pretty easy. Now he certainly is going to need an eye. Let me show you how I could make an easy eye pretty simply. I'm going to change my grid size by looking at View, Grid Size, and I'm going to change it down to 1. I'm going to draw an arc, and I'm going to put on G for my grid point snap, and I'm just going to draw a circle. And once I've drawn that circle, I know that that's going to be in 2 parts. I'm going to select the entire thing and combine it. Then I'm going to rubber stamp it and put it right back over top of the other one. And I'm going to make it taller and wider, but not necessarily circular. And if I wanted to, I could at this point engage my gray handles and stretch or skew my circle. Then I'm going to rubber stamp that one, and I'm going to make a 3rd circle. And again, I'm just going to shape it just a little bit. I think this inside circle I'm just going to make a little bit smaller in general. Okay, so I've got these 3 concentric circles, and you say to yourself, how am I going to join them? And let me show you. When you rubber stamp, the pattern is automatically combined. So now if I click on any layer, you notice that they're all combined. And I also want to point out that sometimes when you're working on designing and you have layers on top of each other, you may in fact find that you have to use that little arrow or caret key on your keyboard to go from one design to the next. So I can attach the end point of one circle to the start point of the next circle. That means that I have to divide each of these circles at the start and end point. And the easiest way to do that would be to use nodes. Notice that in doing that, there's a little bit of a blue box here. I am going to have to just pull that apart, and you see there's a little line that's connecting that. So I have to divide this by right-clicking and clicking on divide and just removing that tiny little arc. I might have to use that little arrow, the little caret key to select it just to find it, and I'm going to delete that so that is not in my way. Again, I'm going to engage F7, and I'm going to line this up just a little bit. We're way zoomed in, and it's just a very small opening. Again, I'm going to open each of my circles the same way, dividing off this little tiny segment, selecting it by going through my arrow keys and clicking delete when they're selected. And again, it's a little easier to use my arrow keys to select each circle. Right click, nodes. I'm going to pull this guy apart, and I'm going to now right click, divide, and select, and get this little tiny line out. There, it's gone. I'm going to go ahead. This is my start point of my largest circle, and I'm going to re-engage nodes. I'll do that with F7. And I'm going to attach it to this next circle. I'm going to attach that to that circle. So if I wanted to see if that's going to run, I click escape to get out of that. If I want to see if that's going to run continuously, let me select the base part of my owl and toggle him as zone and run F2. That's F2 to see the stitching order, and I can click on the plus sign to run that a little quickly. Good, that stitches quite well. And if we go down and we zoom in, we can see we have an easy start and end point to work with and attach to our base part of our owl. Now, we might want to distort this a little. We may not want our owl to have a perfectly round eye, in which case we could cycle through to our gray handles, and we could distort this just a little bit if we like. You don't have to do that. Then I'd like to move it, and I'd like to go back to my blue handles to move it, and I'd like to rotate it a little bit. And I can see it's a little large for the space I have in there involved. About like, that looks good right about there, I think. So remember that I'm using this outside shape basically to form his nose. And I think now that I've put his eye in, I need to adjust that a little bit. I'm going to go to F7. And I am going to just pull this down just a little bit, and maybe even just a little bit farther. And if you want, you can round out around the eye. You can do really anything you want. I connected that with my E. And now I'm going to escape that function. Now what I want to do is attach this part of the nose to the eye. And we need to attach this wing to the base. And let me show you how to do that. We'll start with the wing. And this actually is really simple. We can do this using some older CS tools. I'll select the wing, and I will select the endpoint handles, which are light blue and clear, actually. And I want to make sure all my snaps are off. And just pull that out a little bit, and then I want to select the first part of the wing, and I can just snap that right there, clicking on my E on my keyboard, and then I'm going to deselect it. Let me go to this part of the wing, and I want to move that in just a little, then to this curve. Now, you have to be a little careful. When you move a curve, you see what happens. It's like a gate. It just wants to swing. So here, I think I'm going to use my F7. You watch how much easier it is to move that. When I go past my blue handle, I get a little curve, but don't get nervous. I'm going to attach that there by using my endpoint snap. Now I'm going to turn off endpoints. And notice how I can now adjust my curve. I want to probably pull this up a little bit and move this up a little bit so it's a little smoother. That actually is excellent. So you see how now we have attached the wing using our nodes. I think also a little bit more curvature. So I'm going to select it, go to F7, and I'm going to make him a little bit more curved. And this is not a quilting masterpiece, but you know, if you wanted, you could put all kinds of quilting elements in this owl's stomach. For the purposes of my simple project, I did not do that. Now I need to draw an attaching line from the nose to the eye, and I do that by engaging my draw arc on the CAD. My E is already on, and I start here. I'm going to just lift him up, and I'm going to attach him to the start point, and that line will cross over there if we want, and when we're finished we can tighten that up a little bit so that it's not so many lines showing. Actually, I think when we zoom out to the normal size, you're not going to see it so much. Again, we're going to use our arc, and we're going to attach an arc at the very end of the eye, and I'm going to turn off my E now. We're going to finish off his nose, and we can do that in any of a number of ways. We can simply give him one single nose. We can make it nice and deep if we want. I think he's curved in a little too far here. I'm going to use F7 to adjust that a little bit. And then I want to make sure my end is right. I can move that right to that center line so that when I actually mirror image this project, it is totally connects there. There we have it. Now, I would like this stitch continuously from the center down here all the way up through and around the eye and down to the nose. So to do that, there's two ways we can do that. Of course, we can select everything, and we can select F8. But we can simply renumber our segments. It's actually relatively easy on this. And make sure everything's going in the correct direction. Okay, 7, 8, 9, and 10. We can see that that worked well, and then we click on F8 again, and we can see that that is now going to work quite nicely. Let's see what he looks like when we mirror him. Let's select the whole thing and click on the mirror icon. I like to use G to get a nice straight mirror image, and I'm going to mirror image my half to see what that looks like. And well, he's kind of cute. I think we could do some other adjustment to him. Maybe this is a little too high or whatever. That would be up to you. I might want to, in fact, I think I do want to make this just a smooth curve all the way across. So let's just use our divide function, our F7, and let's divide right here. I'm hovering over it and clicking D, and I want to just take that off. And then on this section, I'm going to engage F7. Click D on my keyboard as I hover, and I'm just going to move this all the way over here, and watch how I can adjust that. I can make it to any height I want. You can play with that as much as you want. So we have our start and end right down here, and we have a kind of a smoother curve. I'm almost going to make it flat because it is a pillow. Okay, not at all unhappy with that. We still have to make sure that he's going to stitch all in one fell swoop. So I'm going to click on the starting line, and this time I'm just going to use my order join icon, and now you see how the start and end are at the same point, and he'll stitch well. And if you wanted to test this, you could use your F2. I'm going to combine him. Now, as I said, I'd like to add some echo lines to him, and I can do this in a number of ways. I could simply draw around him. This first time, I think what I'm going to do is select the whole pattern, and I am going to right-click and click on Echo Pattern at 0.25 an inch, and I'm going to click on the little bell. And let's just see what happens. And that actually looks terribly nice. Let's do it one more time. Now on this particular line, I want to make this line more straight. So what I'm going to do is engage my nodes, and you're going to notice that when I do, I get a whole lot of boxes. And that's because when we echo, we get little tiny line segments, not true curves. So we're just going to take out part of this top line. I'm going to just roughly hover and go over to this side and hover and click D. And I'm going to take out this V-shaped line. And now I'm just going to draw a line. I'm going to attach it there. I have my E-snap attached. And then I'm just going to draw a very little curve and then attach it on this side. And if we want to, we could adjust that. That actually looks, I think, pretty nice. I'm happy with it just where it is. One last time we have to think about stitch order. I'd like it to start actually on the outside line. Let's see how we're going to do that. I can see that the start and end point is going to be roughly there. I don't want that to happen. So what I'm going to do when I zoom in, I am going to engage F7. And I'm going to divide my pattern right here so that this is my start point. I'm going to just take a little tiny chunk of this pattern out. It's just going to be easier. I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to select this now as my starting pattern for my outside line and hit Order Join. I've done my first line that way, and I need to attach this now to my second line. We can again select that or use our little arrow key to select it, and we can click on F7 and take out just this little tiny portion, and I'm going to delete that little section, and I'm going to draw a line from the end of my outside to the beginning of my inside. I can just take a little curvy line there, and I've got E attached. I'm going to disengage E and just draw a little line there. And again, from the end of this to the beginning of our owl, and we can open this space up a little bit, again using F7 as our nodes. Divide. It's a start and end, so you don't really have to divide there. You can just separate it. You want to make sure your snaps are off and just move that over a little, and then you can just draw your arc any way you like. That might be a little bit big. Let's just adjust that a little bit using my carrots to get to that little line. And I'll engage my nodes. And I think I want to just make that a little bit smaller. I got a little carried away. Again, I'm going to click on my very first line where I want to start. Click on Order Join. You can see that it's going to end up in the middle. And if you want to test that, you can. I'm a believer. I'm going to select the whole thing, combine it, and there is my owl pillow ready to stitch. Let's get stitching. Export your completed design as a CSQ. Don't forget to name and save your project so you can find it later. If you've been working in standalone mode, place your completed project on a flash drive and take it to your Staedtler stitcher and stitch it out on your desired fabric. Don't forget to adjust the placement of your project to the desired location for stitching. If you want, Use a quilted back. Stitch a rectangle using your desired fill or edge-to-edge design. Make your back approximately 1 inch wider and 1 inch longer than your pillow top. Make your design size small in keeping with the scale of your project. After stitching your top and back, cut them out, leaving approximately a 1/2 inch excess on all sides. Then you want to add any embellishments to your owl. Be as creative as you desire, adding buttons, bows, paint, or any other desired adornments. Once you are satisfied, place your 2 layers right sides together and stitch on the outside echo line of the owl top, leaving a 3-inch reinforced opening. Now you can trim the excess close to the stitching line. Turn your pillow right sides out and stuff using polyfiber fill. Hand whip stitch the opening shut with a matching thread. Don't forget to have fun. Here are some other owl examples. Be as creative as you like. I hope you learned a lot, and thanks for watching my video. For more information about me, visit my website at www.martyquilts.com.